ICE is now a boogeyman. Understand this? Like, ICE wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing anyways. They were going after people that were here illegally to the extent that they were getting a small portion of, the known criminals. People who were criminals here that weren't getting prosecuted or deported, and when it was a really bad case, people that were criminals in their home country where their record was so heinous, their governments actually knew they left the country. So those were really the only people that they were going after. There were some other ones in there who had crossed the border illegally. They got some of those, but not very many. What they were supposed to do was get rid of everybody who was here illegally to start with. And that would have been a huge swath of people. But instead of doing that smart, instead of doing that efficiently, they went after high-profile cases, but they didn't do it quietly. They went with I would call it an army, but I call it a militia. They went like a militia-style approach, a militia with really good weapons. A lot of those people also privately outfitting their own gear, I'm sure, and they made a fucking media circus out of it. And I kept asking myself, why? Why would they do this? Like, there is a way to do this quietly. I mean, we have special forces, right? Those people go into countries all the time and do a fucking ton of stuff that we don't ever get to hear about. And if you don't think that they do, then I don't know what to say to you. But we have the ability to do that. We know the tactics to do that. So to grab these high-profile criminals, the violent murderers and the fucking serious sex offenders and like fucking, and you know, serial rapists, you go in their special forces style, you grab them, you get them out, it's done. And then if you want to talk about it later in the media, you can. But when you bring a big militia, almost an army, to a city, what's your purpose for that? I mean, you're not going to be taking 10,000 people out of that city. You should, maybe more, but they're not doing that. They're never doing that. So it almost made me wonder if he mishandled it on purpose. And additionally, ICE went after, I mean, I'm sure there were a couple of isolated examples, but they went after no H-1B visa offenders, and there are a fucking ton of those because they have strict rules with the H-1B visa that nobody enforces. So they don't, if a person is here on their student visa and they overstay their visa, there are companies that they can pay to keep their papers current. I obviously don't know how it works. I'm not in one of those companies, but it happens. So if they really wanted to go after illegals, they would be going after people who are violating their H-1B visas also. But they didn't do that. And then there is a similar style. Every country has a different style that they use to get here. You know, it's just the Central and South Americans, Mexicans, Central, South Americans just typically walk over the border. It's mostly Central and Mexicans, right? They just typically walk over. So those are the people that they're talking about, but there are way more than that. So ICE never did anywhere near what it was supposed, like what the average person thought in their mind, this is what they're doing. They were never doing anything anywhere near like that. So I don't like ICE either, for different reasons than these libs don't like it. They don't like it because they think their country shouldn't have borders because they're fucking communists. I don't like them because they weren't doing the job they were supposed to do anyways. And now, getting to where we are now we have a almost ineffectual boogeyman that anytime somebody wants to push their political leanings, all they have to do is talk about ICE. Oh, I don't like ICE because they don't like Mexicans. I don't like ICE because they fucking hurt, they break up families, they hurt. It's all become political buzzwords, which it already was before, and the left did that for the most part. They did that, but Trump and the way he used them enabled that. He almost pushed that as a narrative. It's almost like Trump was looking a couple steps ahead, like at you, and said, you know, we're going to want a lot more immigration, so the best way to get more immigration is to fight immigration. First off, I'll control this side of the narrative, and then I'll make a fucking big debacle out of everything, and I won't really get any high numbers, but we'll over-publicize the shit out of it. We'll let the media run away with it. We'll let a couple of things get out of hand, and then everyone will be so anti-immigration enforcement that in a few years they'll do absolutely nothing. Hence his idea of putting ICE into the airport if the TSA didn't work, right? What kind of qualifications and how is that even the same? Now, do I think they're not smart enough to figure out how to do the TSA job? I think anybody could do the TSA job. I mean, you know what a sketchy person looks like, but running their equipment would take a little while to learn. And looking at their list of protocols, what order to do shit in. But other than that, no, I don't think that. So I think they can figure it out. But that's not the job that they're supposed to be doing. And that is because he is already trying to put it in people's minds that this department can be repurposed for something else. When down the road, you guys all decide you hate him so much. Oh, by the way, let's get a whole bunch more H-1B visas. And when people walk over the border, you know, if they're not actively killing anybody or raping anybody, they probably could just stay because, you know, we need their labor. So the same thing that George Bush said, the same thing that Obama said, the same thing that's been said by presidents since fucking Ronald Reagan. So he fucked us. Fell for it again award, right?